It's starting again.
Good.
Yeah, four?
No, I just gonna.
No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, right? We can't count these.
Okay, 1, 2,
No, there we go, 6.
3. Okay, great. Okay, hey, welcome. We're glad you're here, everybody. We're going to get started so we can get to the real meat of this today. We hear from our colleagues at Shoreline schools. But I just wanted to, maybe we'll just go around and introduce ourselves. And I'm going to start because I'm going to read you some poetry. You'll really like this. And this is all about you guys. The people I love the best jump into work head first, without dallying in the shadows, and swim off with sure strokes almost out of sight. They seem to become like natives of that element, and black sleek heads of seals bouncing half-submerged balls. I love people who harness themselves, an ox to a heavy cart, who pull the water buffalo with massive patience, who strain in the mud and the muck to move things forward, who do what has to be done again and again. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest, to work in a row and pass bags along, and are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come in or the fire must be put out. The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands and crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. So that's, my name is Sarah Phillips, and I just read you from the book club book, which we're reading. We're meeting next Wednesday, tomorrow, in the third place. And you don't have to have read anything to come, but if you wanted to read from the book called All We Can Say, it's the section on advocates. Just a little plug. And that was one of the readings, so you've already read one of the sections. So my name's Sarah, and I'm the chair of this committee. And let's have you, our guest producers.
Hi, everyone. My name is Susanna Reyes. I'm the superintendent for Shoreline Schools.
Hi, I'm Lois. I'm on the planning commission.
Oh.
Let's start with Anne.
I'm Ann Udeloy, hydrogeologist.
Okay, Linda.
Hi, I'm Linda Holman. I'm a member of the committee. I'm also a member of Lake Forest Park Rotary, and I'm a master gardener.
Sarah.
I'm the other Sarah, right?
Yes.
I'm Sarah Cohen, and I am currently the president of the Shoreline School Board.
Thank you. Anne. Anna.
I'm Anna Cote. I'm a student at Bishop Blanchette High School.
Tamara.
I'm Tamara Erickson. I'm on the communications committee. Yeah, thanks for coming.
Rebecca. We thought you were so welcome.
Thank you. I'm Rebecca Rivera, and I'm on the Shoreline School Board and on our school districts, our school board, climate justice and sustainability resolution committee.
Great. Jessica.
I apologize, my video is not working. This is Jessica Cote. I'm a coastal engineer and owner of a business in Lake Forest Park. And I was out looking at flood damage today from the storm events from the 27th through the 29th of December.
Boy. Corey, what would you?
Yeah. Corey Roach, City of Lake Forest Park. Isabella.
Oh, Bella. You want to introduce yourself, Bella? Hi.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
I'm Bella. I use she, her pronouns. I go to Shorecrest. I'm a senior.
What are we introducing ourselves with?
That's it, just a quick one. But we want to know
Cool,
if you
yeah.
have finished your college applications.
I have one left. I submitted Pitzer yesterday, and I have to finish a supplemental essay for Vermont, and then I'm done.
Okay, Anna, have you finished your applications?
Yeah, I turned in my last one a couple days ago.
Woo-hoo! Okay, and Tracy.
I'm Tracy Furtani. I'm on Lake Forest Park City Council. I'm the liaison to this committee. And hi, Sarah. We both serve on the Shoreline Arts
Oh, nice.
Board.
Hi, Tracy.
Have you, is there anybody who would move the adoption of the agenda? Anne, will you move the adoption of the agenda?
I move we adopt the agenda.
And we have minutes from the last meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the December meeting?
I move to approve the minutes because I didn't attend it and can't speak to them.
Okay. Tamara, are you up to moving the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Is there any objection to either the adoption of the agenda or the minutes? Do we have any citizen comments?
We have one attendee. So if you would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. No,
Do you know who it is?
Mike D.
Oh, hi, Mike. Okay, so thank you very much for being so brief, because we really want to get to the heart of the matter, which is to hear from Shoreline Schools about what they're doing with their with their and I'm going to turn it over to Jessica. I mean Jessica, excuse me, not Jessica. I'm going to turn it over to Tamara to sort of lead this section.
Thank you for coming. So Dr. Rebecca Rivera and I have been corresponding over the last couple of months, thanks to Sarah Betnell, who put us in touch with each other. And, you know, we were discussing that the City of Lake Forest Park is working on developing a climate action plan, and so is the Shoreline School District. And we thought it would be really awesome if we could get together and just discuss different opportunities we have where we can work together. We can help each other, you know, with our, you know, developing these plans, implementing these plans, see, you know, how we can help each other make our goals into a reality. And so we thought it'd be a good opportunity for us to just kind of discuss what, you know, each of us has done so far to date, kind of what we hope to do, and then we can talk about ways that we can partner together.
So the floor is yours, Shoreline Schools.
Okay, great. So I'll just give a rundown of some of the things that we've been doing and the goals that we have. And then I would ask that if Sarah or Susanna have anything to add to that. Sarah Cohen and I, along with Susanna, have been part of a board's committee for a climate justice and sustainability resolution that would set goals for the Shoreline School District for the next maybe 20 to 30 years around climate justice, climate change, and sustainability. And for this, we wanted to get a lot of community input and tribal input and input from different community organizations. So what we did early on was to create a survey that we wanted to send to different organizations and groups within the school district to get their feedback on what they might like to see. I'm going to go over some of those questions right now. Some of those questions we asked were, you know, what is your future vision in 2050? What does the Shoreline School District look like? What is the experience of students and staff in around climate justice, and sustainability? We asked about current practices. What climate, environmental justice, climate justice, and sustainability practices is the district currently implementing that we should maintain and grow? Future goals. What climate, environmental justice, climate justice or sustainability goals should the district be working on and why? And then how, what are the processes and resources needed to achieve your goals, and how should the work get done? Accountability, how might we measure district success around these? Priorities, what are the top 3 goals or elements that the district should work on? We've talked with, well, I believe Bella's climate justice club at Shorecrest last year, and we got their input. We've talked to teachers and staff, and particularly staff who are working on climate change and climate justice and environmental justice in our schools. We've talked with BIPOC faculty and staff. We've reached out to, I believe, a community or parent group working on climate issues in our school district. And we've also talked with the city of Shoreline as they've been rewriting their transportation plan and their community climate action plan as well. And so we hope to incorporate the city of Shoreline's goals into our resolution. And we're super excited to be here today talking with you all, and we would love to make sure that we can work together and that we can help meet each other's goals and write these resolutions. Our next steps are that we really want to get tribal input, and so that's something that's on our agenda, and probably reach out to some more community organizations around our resolution. We did have a number of, from the focus groups and the responses that we did receive, we started to kind of draft an outline of what the resolution might look like. And then once we complete that draft with additional input, we would like to submit it to the larger community for feedback. In particular, go back to those groups like the climate group at Shorecrest and with teachers and different organizations and groups in the region. So we still have some work to do. And I also did want to say that the 2 student representatives to the board last year were really instrumental in helping with our work to date. And then we hope that the 2 new student representatives, or soon to be 4 student representatives, might also participate in this process.
Let me ask you, what is a resolution? Is it, are you talking about a 20-page paper or a 10-page, one page? What is the image? It's not your primary.
That's a great question. The board's role in the district is really to drive large policy and the budget, and we hire the superintendent. And so within that, the resolution would be a short document. Right now, I think it's 2 pages, but it might get up to 3 pages, where we're really drafting like larger goals. And we're thinking about the why and our major goals, and not the how do we get there. I think the how piece is important for us to think about and to make sure we get administrative and staff input on these. But we're really thinking about larger goals that then the district would work towards putting into practice. And we do also want to include in the resolution some accountability measures to say, you know, are we doing what we're doing, and some check-ins with the board moving forward. But the resolution is just generally get some high-level goals that we would like to write, understanding also the needs and the limitations in the current work of the district.
And is that resolution available or not yet? Is it a public document yet?
Not yet. No. Of course, anything that we write is a public document, but it's not completely drafted yet. We're just in the process of starting that process, but we can definitely share it with all of you. And I just wanted to reach out to Dr. Cohen and Superintendent Reyes to see if you had anything to add to what I shared.
I think you summarized it really well. I don't have anything specific to add right now, but I'll jump in later in the discussion if something comes up. Thanks.
No, I think I'm good as well. I think it was a great summary in bringing back what the draft ultimately looks like. It'll be great also then, like Director Rivera shared, to share it back with the groups we connected with to see if it aligns with what they shared with us. So it'll be a great process of looping back with them and reconnecting, because we began this last year, early part of the year, I think. And so it'll be a process. But
So can we get a sneak preview? We say we won't, I don't know, tell somebody. I mean, what I guess the question is.
I can talk through. I don't think it's in a shareable format right now, but I can talk through some of the things that we've been thinking of. But well, actually, I would leave it to Superintendent Reyes. We have not shared this with staff yet, and I think that that's probably an important piece of it. Before we share, would Superintendent Reyes, would you say that, or?
I think we can share some of the points that we are intending to include in it. The bigger topics, because it is an overarching document, not super detailed or specific as well. And so sharing the high level ideas. And
so some of the high level ideas are, well, I want to say one thing is that we were talking about, making sure that some of our goals were to decrease emissions through transportation. And we would still like to continue to work with the City of Shoreline's Department of Transportation, but also with Lake Forest Park on that. But one of our sub goals, and again, these are things we've talked about. These are not things we've written in stone, and they are just elements that folks have mentioned to us or that we've talked about as a committee. But one of those was to make sure that all students got ORCA cards. That does a few things. It increases attendance, it's shown to increase grades, and it gets students using public transportation, which decreases common emissions, and it gets them used to public transportation. And that happened, so a big check for us that we didn't do anything to do that, push that forward. But that's something that the county has worked on that we're really excited about. So that's something along the lines of what we wanted to do. The city of Shoreline was aiming to cut emissions by 50% by 2030 and by 80% by 2050. And so that's a goal that we would like to incorporate just because we're part of the city of Shoreline. And so that's a goal we're interested in doing. We wanted to partner with the city of Shoreline and with Lake Forest Park, the city of Lake Forest Park, so with you all, to develop better routes for walking and biking and busing, especially for middle school and high school students. Let's see, set some goals for walkability. Let's see, I'm just trying to think of things that I might share. And then also explore partnerships between the city of Seattle, the city of Shoreline and Lake Forest Park to implement projects that students might participate in related to climate change. For example, we didn't talk about this, but there was a New York Times article recently that talked about food waste and the great impacts of food waste. And there was a school program that they highlighted there. So, things like that would take, making sure we're working with staff and acknowledging staff capacities right now as well. So looking at especially around climate justice and the curriculum around climate justice and environmental justice with a focus on Indigenous voices. Things like updating school buildings and making sure there's equity among the buildings for things like HVAC systems and things like that. Looking at what we're doing district-wide with composting, maybe eliminating single-use practices, sustainability, sustainable and local sourcing, and some of this different schools are doing. Advocating for state funding and legislative action. Getting a report on district emissions. you know, tracking in terms of accountability, our carbon footprint, serving students, and then everything from looking at our transportation systems, our buildings, our deep dives into curriculum, experiential learning, and food and partnerships, stewarding relationships between land and people. So this is like a huge list of things. And so our resolution would be much shorter. We want to make sure that we're bringing the community and staff and faculty along, that the staff feel comfortable with this, and that we are also creating the capacity for staff to and the community to support these projects. And I saw there was a hand up.
Hi, yeah, Jessica. So you mentioned the tribal communities, and I was curious if you've reached out to particular tribal communities and if there were ones that seemed to be more engaged or have capacity. I know there's also, you know, capacity issues with folks in the tribal communities right now too, with all the, you know, COVID response, which is still going on, unfortunately, and now natural disasters too. So just, yeah, curious which tribes, if any, and what recommendations you would have for us in terms of maybe connecting with tribal communities.
Yeah, so within the state of Washington, I'm going to give a little bit of background here. The state passed the Since Time Immemorial curriculum to be enacted in all schools through Washington state. And of course, funding didn't come along with that. So that's been difficult. And then the school board is really, that's one of our goals, is to incorporate that Since Time Immemorial, that Native curriculum into our schools. And because the Washington state has pushed this legislation or passed the legislation. Sorry, I'm a little sick, so I'm like, my throat's okay. They've also worked really hard to help schools identify their local tribes. And so through the state of Washington, we've identified the Snoqualmie and the Tulalip tribes. And the district's already been working with those tribes to help support this is implementation of the Since Time Immemorial curriculum, or STI. And then so we've reached out to them as well, or started to reach out to them about this resolution. One of the things that Susanna and I have taken a kind of an introductory course on working with tribes, and have reached out to tribes and talked with the office of this state superintendent. Is that right?
Right.
OSPE, and around reaching out with tribes. And one of the things that, you know, we are focusing on, or want to focus on, is relationship building, which is really important. And so we want to make sure that we are building relationships with tribes, and that this isn't also something we're taking from them, but something thinking about what can we offer to tribal communities as well. And so I think that is going to be a longer process that we're working towards.
I'm surprised that either Muckleshoot, just because of Muckleshoot has a presence and interest in Lake Washington, specifically related to fishing, that they didn't come up, or the Squamish tribe related to Puget Sound and Shoreline, you know, that being on, I mean, obviously the school district isn't right on Puget Sound, but, you know, the city of Shoreline and Shoreline School District neighborhoods are also on Puget Sound waterways, and the Squamish also have, you know, jurisdiction and UNA fishing rights in Puget Sound. So neither of those were ones, though, that I'm not sure exactly how it's decided which ones to reach out to.
Yeah, the state's identified for us the Tulalip and Snoqualmie tribes, and I'll let Susanna add anything to that.
Right. Yes, the two tribes that Dr. Rivera mentioned, Tulalip and Snoqualmie, are the two designated tribes based on our location of our school district. And so our consultation work is expected to be with those two tribes specifically. It doesn't mean we don't reach out to other tribes, but those are the two that the state expects us to engage in anything related to our work that is whether it's instructional or in this case, if we want to connect with local tribes on this work, it would be those two tribes.
Thanks. That's something that has come up in our discussions many times, is how to, the appropriate way to engage the tribes and to get their input and to bring them along in a way that is not imposing on them in any way.
And that list of, it's actually the list is called the School District and Nearest Federally Recognized Indian Tribes. That list is publicly available and I can send it to Tamara. So one thing is that I know Tamara and I have met a few times, but I think that we'd all love to hear, and especially Director Cohen and Superintendent Reyes, a little bit about the work of the Lake Forest Park Climate Committee and what your goals are, and yeah, and your work and kind of timeline.
Well, we're on like day 2 of we've met together 6 times, so is that right, about 6 months we've been together, and we're moving as quickly as we can, because we think if you have a document in front of in the same way you're working on a resolution, we're going to work on a document that we can put in front of our council and then go back to our community groups. But one of the things we've done in our research is to find that among the cities, there's a great similarity among the climate action committees, climate action plans. And we are consultant-less. We're writing it ourselves. So we're going to rely heavily on the work that the consultants have done in our neighboring cities, Shoreline, Kenmore, Issaquah, Redmond. That several of them have used the same consultant, and there's a consistency, and we're looking at that. But our 3, the sort of the 3 things we know we have to look at is, we talk about electrifying everything. That's for us an important issue. And how the whole issues around emissions reduction. The second one sort of is how do we create ecosystems that work, and that we can sequester carbon. One of the things that people talk about, they joke and say it's Lake Forest dark with all the trees. So the question is, how do we use those as an asset for us in sequestration? And the third is sort of how do we as a city prepare and develop both preparedness and resiliency for the changes that are coming. Those are sort of the biggest picture kinds of things that we're working on, but so that's where we are. And my colleagues here should just jump right in and say where I got that wrong.
Well, we also just did a survey. So we had it going for a couple of months. It closed on December 31st. We had, I think, what was it? About 460 responses. Am I getting that right? So, just ask people questions about, how, kind of the different areas that Sarah had mentioned and how we should prioritize. And, ask several questions, about if money wasn't an issue, what would you do to help reduce your carbon emissions? What should we do as a community? What should the city do on a municipal level? Just kind of trying to see where people think we should focus our efforts. So we're going to take a look at all that data and try to summarize it and put it together so we can make sure that we're addressing what our community wants us to do.
What is your timeline? When are you hoping to bring something forward for that?
Well, I think we think we can have a first draft by the end of March. But that's sort of and that's a draft that we would then shop around. But that might be too ambitious.
Hi, my name is Brian Saunders. I was just going to ask a question. We got our carbon emissions from K4C, the emission programs that they set up and showed us all the wonderful data that they have. I'm wondering, what have you guys done with that at Shoreline? What's been your response to that?
For the district?
Well, just as the numbers in general. I mean, what have you done with the numbers? Because I don't know about you, but we found their numbers to be somewhat vague and really kind of pointing us in directions where we really should be heading. So we're kind of taking a different path on what we should do with that data. So I'm just curious as to what you guys might be doing.
Yeah, and what was the data set you're looking at?
The K4C.
It's a King County Climate Collaborative.
City collaborative.
Okay.
You got it.
So are you looking, do you have emission studies for the schools? Maybe
We-
that's
Well, I'll let just Director, Susanna speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the city of Shoreline probably has some information for specific to our district, and I'd have to connect with our team. But I don't recall that we went through that level of data as we began this work last year as a kind of a board committee with students. It was more about reaching out to people to learn about what people would like to have us establish as potential future goals as a system in response to the climate, basically the climate crisis. I know that we all see it in that way. But we didn't use data for the conversations. At this point, we haven't. I think that's a great, maybe part of the picture that we can pursue so that it's more complete. But I know the city of Shoreline, and I'm sure that we have some level of data from our team, but I don't have it with me, nor am I aware what those numbers might be.
I believe that we did take a look at that
Mhm.
data. If it's the same, it probably is the same set that you're referencing. And it had the city of Shoreline, but it didn't have it broken out as to what impacts were associated specifically with the schools, but it did, break it out by transportation, by I can't remember the other categories off the top of my head right now, but it was relevant to our thinking about the way that the schools are a piece of that and where, our different sources of emissions contribute. But I think that that data isn't really granular enough for it to be something that can be specifically actionable to the school district alone, as opposed to in these partnerships with the cities.
Got it. Yeah, thank you.
And then one thing I think that we're really focused on with the school district too is the equity pieces of it, as people of color and low-income communities are going to be the most impacted by climate change, but then the least cause of it, right? And so some of those things that the King County Climate Action Plan really dictates is looking at housing, for example, and different ways to address equity in a climate action plan. And so those are some of the things that we would like to work on, and especially within the resolution.
Yeah, and that's something that we have talked about as well, is how we can make sure that every component of our climate action plan, we look at it through that climate justice lens.
Mm-hmm.
And something that came up in the survey that was a high priority for a lot of people was for us to focus on lobbying efforts to help, and to partner with other cities to influence climate-friendly policy changes. that was one of the response where we got one of the biggest, high priority prioritization for us. And so I think that's something that, we could work together on, is having to, lobby for, funding for the school districts and how to help the school district be able to achieve the goals that you set out in the broad resolution.
Well, the other thing that they mentioned, that Dr. Rivera mentioned as well, was the sidewalks and the walkability and the biking, which is something we've talked a lot about. We know that transportation is one of the number one things for City of Lake Forest Park in terms of reducing emissions. And, I know that it's difficult to get from our house to the high school, for example, by bike or walking, because there aren't, good sidewalks and bike lanes, and there's not even a crosswalk to, you get only one crosswalk to get across the Hollinger Way, so things like that, which makes it very difficult, right, for those students who maybe would choose to walk or to bike. And I don't know with when you guys think about transportation, do you think about like reducing the number of people that are taking buses so that you could actually like reduce the size of your buses or the number of your buses? Would it go that far?
That would be probably not the size, but the number, and that would also help our budget as well, to reduce the need for transportation or busing. Yeah, and to have larger walkable. So there's a certain, and Susanna will be able to share more details than I can, but there's a certain peripheral area around the schools that are considered walkable, and potentially one of the things we might look at is expanding what those are, but there has to be safe routes to school for us to expand that.
Yeah, but you can really see how, if we can collaborate, because your buses must be super users, and they're diesel, right? Or there's no
We
diesel.
have one that's electric and another one either here now or on order. And then opportunities for future grants that we can access are, also on the horizon.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking that if it's good for the school, it's good for us. So all of those reductions are collaborative. Yeah. So lobbying, they're eager to lobby.
Yeah, but I also want to just make sure it's clear that in terms of like routes to school, the school district doesn't really have a lot of authority or ability to make any changes to the, infrastructure of the city. So that's why these collaborations from our point of view are so important, because at least from the there's things that we could do sort of programmatically, or in terms of how we organize our transportation, but there's nothing that we can do alone to put in a sidewalk. So I think we really need to rely on this partnership, and I think figure out how best to coordinate so that those efforts can be aligned. Because we can put as many sidewalks as we want in our plan, but we don't have any ability to make that happen other than by working together. So we would love our plan to be realistic in terms of what the cities can do, and to be in line with the goals that you have for your own plan.
I do want to mention that there is a Washington State program called Safe Routes to School program that I think cities can apply for. And I think that's I'm not sure if it's an annual or biannual program, but there's something there. I don't think it's enough for our needs combined, the Lake Forest Park and the Shoreline School District, but there is something existing.
Well, excuse me, I have a question. Could anybody from the district tell me how long that plan has been in place? Because a number of years ago, a group of us from Lake Forest Park Rotary tried to join with Lake Forest Park Elementary School to enhance that program. We came out and volunteered to help go with the parents, walk the children to school on, you know, the most obvious route that could be taken for safety. And unfortunately, it didn't come together and it wasn't cohesive and it didn't, you know, it didn't stay. But one of the biggest problems was as you came to the school with these groups of children walking, the amount of single cars dropping off one child was blocks long. So I'm thinking that in order to get something like that to be really successful, you really have to engage the parents so that they don't feel it's necessary to have 2 and 3 blocks long of cars waiting to drop off one child. You know, that if these programs are going to work, got to get the buy-in from the families that they see the value of it and want to be a part of it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great and that's helpful. But just to answer your initial question, so this plan is not actually, this resolution is not in place yet.
Right.
It's just in development, and it's so probably this development started after that effort. It sounds like it was before the pandemic that kind of scrambled everything.
A number of years ago, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but it would be great to get something like that off the ground again, and maybe this effort could help add some coordination.
Yeah.
To work on that.
Tracy, for the question.
Yes. So I just wanted to comment from the council point of view. I think all of your ideas are wonderful, both the district and what this committee is doing. I think that's something I'm discovering though personally as we go through this is, yes, the state and the feds have pots of money for all kinds of different improvements that could address our issues. And what I find that we're limited by is staff, because basically people only have so much time. Project management becomes a significant issue. And we have to be kind of smart about what we pick. And I keep seeing that, wow, the district could pay for like 1/3 of a project manager, and the cities could pick up 1/3 each on the project manager, and maybe we could actually get something going here. I don't know if this is a practical thing, but if we had something like Vision Zero, which is that program to knock down pedestrian fatalities to 0 in every municipality, this would serve the purposes of both the climate action plan of the district and the cities, and also fulfill that particular goal for 0 fatalities as well, and get the money that we need, because there are pots of money for that sort of thing. So I guess the broad question, which I don't need an answer to right now, is there a way that we can pool resources so we could get kind of a joint project manager, somebody who would oversee all these grants that we need to apply for?
I will answer in part for the district right now is that we are in a budget crisis and the state does not fund us fully. And so they don't have a line item for that kind of position for project manager. And so we're looking at having to reduce our budget right now by almost 10% or more than 10%. And so, yeah, in the near future, we're not in a position, the district isn't in a position to do that. And I don't know that going forward with the size of our district, that would be feasible for us. But I think there are, and Susanna can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't mean, but there are certain kind of administrative staff that might be able to, well, yeah, I don't want to say like, yeah, I don't know that we have the capacity to do that. Susanna.
Yeah, I think it would really require, there could be grant opportunities that, may come our way or that people may come across that you might want to explore together, sort of in a collaborative. And if the grant funding is sufficient enough, they could fund like even a part-time position or something. Our current staff, even with the staff that we have right now, we wouldn't have the bandwidth to add that to an existing staff member to share that load. But I think it's just a matter of keeping our eyes open for possible grants, which, you know, could at least help us get started, maybe not get everything in place, but certainly keep the momentum. Because even with, you know, budget crisis situations, there could be opportunities to even baby steps continue along the way.
I do notice that one thing they are trying to do to get people to apply is saying it's okay to hire personnel to manage the grant as part of the grant funding.
Right.
Yeah, which is perfect.
I would just add that I don't know as much about Lake Forest Park, but I know that compared to the city of Shoreline, the school district is much, much leaner administratively. Just our funding model, you know, as it's dictated by the state, really doesn't have a lot of room for a lot of administrative staff positions, and there's a really large operation with, you know, that they need to be operating every day. And so I think we just, you know, we're organizations, unfortunately, that are funded at different, is kind of a different paradigm for those sorts of efforts, which, you know, I mean, there's lobbying around that too. I think, you know, it really is difficult for schools to innovate and to take advantage of opportunities because of that. But we do have a lot of resources that we could look into contributing in kind. One thing we have definitely is a big volunteer pool and people with a lot of talents who are, you know, sometimes very motivated and very connected. So that's something that we could work on. There is this active climate committee through the schools that might, you know, be interested in taking on in a more unofficial capacity. I mean, or an, you know, not an employee role, some kind of work. So I think we would want to look at where we could contribute outside of designated staff time.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, is utilizing students and parents as resources and seeing, you know, perhaps there's some other creative ways that we could do, like after school programs, you know, with the students and the parents to get more people involved in learning about climate change and learning what they can do, you know, in their homes to help, you know, fight climate change. I think there's definitely a lot of opportunities for some creative ideas.
That's kind of a good segue to a question that I had, was just listening, from listening to this conversation. I was wondering if the students on the call have any thoughts about how this work intersects with what happens in schools, or you know, with school policy. Feel free not to accept being put on the spot.
No, I had a couple questions as kind of we were going through it, and I was putting them like on hold in my mind so I could ask them later, and then I kind of forgot a couple of them. But when you, at the beginning, when Dr. Rivera, when you were talking about stuff on the plan, like how we have free like Orca cards right now, and stuff like that, I feel like it would be cool if there could be a way, and I know last year, like my club did do the, like, we filled out the survey for the thing. But if there was like a way where it could be more of like maybe a parent, student, like teacher group within the schools to do more like work or have more conversations about that, because yeah, I think it could be kind of neat and valuable to just, maybe there's some like insight from other students or like staff that could be helpful for like everyone involved. I don't know. I'll try and remember the other questions I had also.
Was that for the survey that you were thinking, for that survey that you had filled out to offer that to a larger group of stakeholders within the school?
I guess so. Yeah, I also meant like, I don't know. I guess I was a little bit confused last year on the policies or like how the school board like committee worked kind of with like in relation to the student rep and then like our club. So I may not be like phrasing this correctly, but in addition to more like in addition to the survey, if or when like the plan is like presented, having like a group kind of look at it or like understand what it means, I think.
Yeah, I think we had two plans for that. One is to share a draft out with the wider community and with different groups to get feedback. And then another would be to put together a committee of folks to come and to help, you know, kind of finalize the draft. So that would happen first. And then we'd really want that committee to be really diverse too. And so that would take some work. And so one of the things that's happened now and why we've kind of put our work on hold is because there is a budget crisis and because of COVID, we don't have a lot of staff capacity. And so all of this takes a lot of staff capacity to do. And so, yeah, the work's been on hold since about June, I think. So this is the first meeting we've had. And then we're gonna have to, you know, we're diving into or continuing with the budget advisory team is meeting every like twice a month to give us a proposal to the board for budgetary cuts. So that's kind of taking a huge amount of staff time right now. And so we're working on this slowly, if that means anything. So yes, Bella, absolutely. To have more of a committee of a community. I know we're not really there quite yet, but that's in the future for sure.
Okay, can I ask like a follow-up question? Does it require, and this is just like more for like my understanding, so to have like those kinds of meetings, it requires like a group to be at like the school district's office with school board like staff present, right?
Well, when you have a bigger, I agree we could probably do it on Zoom. But what would have to happen to get a really diverse group there is a lot of kind of community outreach and building that group. And then once you get more people, it's harder to find dates where everybody can go. So it creates a lot of work to do that. But that is in our plan going forward.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Not immediately.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot more sense. Thank you.
That's something that we've talked about as a city, because the Climate Action Committee, we're all volunteers. And so, and we've also had people in the community, on our survey, I think there were 38 people who expressed interest in volunteering with the Climate Action Committee. But then, having volunteers is great and wonderful, but then you also need someone to kind of help guide the volunteers. So I was wondering if that's something that you considered as well as utilizing parent and student volunteers to help accomplish your goals, and if you've looked at that.
For the school district? Yeah, well, Sarah and I are volunteers essentially. Yeah. And again, it comes down to diversity. So often, environmental initiatives or any initiatives are white led. And so we want to make sure that that's not the case. And so I'll just, there's, I think that having that diversity of voice is really important. And so that takes some energy and intentionality to create. And so, yeah. And so that's where my focus is being really intentional about those community organizations, and then making sure that people of color who are participating in those feel safe and empowered to participate as well. Yeah.
I would just add that in addition to those considerations that are especially relevant for creating the resolution, and I thought, Tamara, you might have been thinking about also volunteers for sort of actions that might come as a result of the resolution. And that would really be just the way that policy making works on a school board, is that that would really be in the hands of the district administration and the superintendent to figure out how, what degree of participation, what programs would look like and how they would involve volunteers or take advantage of that. We wouldn't probably write in a specific program or something like that to the resolution. So that would be, a little bit further along. And, there are programs at individual schools, and I think that there probably are some, I know there's a green team at some schools that have parents who help with that and that kind of thing. But in terms of something district led, we would write the resolution, and then it would be Dr. Reyes and her team who would be responsible for taking it from there in terms of how it was implemented.
Mhm. Do you have
Well,
any
it's been a
other?
very rich conversation, because the issues that we're struggling with are common issues. How do we, and there's there's urgency pushing us by so many directions. Finances is an urgency, the climate is an urgency, making sure that kids get a good education is an urgency, and all of those urgencies are hard. And it's and I think we're at places where we can collaborate, sort of put a pressure valve on some of those urgencies.
So do you have any other questions for us? Any other ideas on what we can do as a city to help out the school district? And I know we're both kind of in the early stages, so I see this as a continuing conversation.
Yeah, so that would be my question, is how do we continue the conversation, and how do we continue to work together? And yeah, and my thought too is, how do we continue to work on kind of the equity and justice pieces of this too? What is Lake Forest? What is the committee doing to look at equity and justice issues? And how can we work together on those things? And I think that the transportation pieces seem to be more easily aligned. For sure.
Anne has her hand up.
Yeah, my children attended Shoreline schools and all got bigger. But when I was a Shoreline parent, all the PTA organizations were organized around the individual school. And one of the challenges that this posed is that every community felt that its needs were the most exceptional in the Shoreline School District. And one consequence of that was that especially at the elementary level, the elementary schools whose parents were lawyers ended up prospering relative to the elementary schools where the parents were first generation immigrants, where 30 languages were spoken in the school, et cetera, et cetera. And I think where we're at now is the direct descendant from that heritage. When you talk about equity, it's a big deal. So if we're talking about transportation pieces in particular, my biggest concern is that the PTAs are organized around, again, elementary schools, for example, who will each feel that their school and their precious darlings are the most precious darlings in the district, and they should get the sidewalks first. I am curious as to your insights as to how we could have a district-wide evaluation of where sidewalks to school would serve the greatest number of children, especially the children whose parents aren't lining up to drive them to school, frankly, because they're working during those hours, and they're getting the kids to school as early as possible because the parents have to work and they're not available to pick the kids up after school. I think we have a highly diverse school district, and I'm afraid that if we don't have some sort of district-wide analysis, it will be very difficult to prioritize school resources towards sidewalks and towards transportation improvements, because I had a lot of conversations with a lot of parents, and I don't think that parochiality actually changes much over time. Every parent automatically thinks their child's needs should come first. It's very hard to break that. So if we're looking only at the city of Lake Forest Park, we can certainly look at our elementary schools and the needs related to those schools, but I'm not convinced that those are the greatest needs district-wide. And I'm not convinced that's where the district should put its resources to serve the greatest number of children with the greatest need.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really important point, and thank you for bringing it up. I can't see who I just spoke over. Tamara, is that you?
No, it was me again, just saying I don't know how to even evaluate the data. I don't know where to get the information or how to evaluate the information district-wide.
Well, I think that because the district doesn't have the authority or resources to actually make transportation improvements directly, that any kind of evaluation like that would have to be something that would be undertaken by Shoreline and Lake Forest Park together, at least in cooperation with the district. Or, you know, we would probably not do that unless we knew that the cities would act on it. And I know that the city of Shoreline has had some a pretty extensive process around deciding the locations for sidewalks, in which, you know, proximity to schools was one factor, but not the only one. And I'm not sure if Lake Forest Park, you know, has done similar or will do something similar. But I guess to look at city infrastructure, but district-wide, I think it would have to be a three-way collaboration. And probably something that we might need. I mean, that's the kind of thing that consultants have expertise in, that is not necessarily the kind of expertise that's contained on any individual staff. But I think that you know, the question about making sure that the louder voices for advocacy don't drown out those who may have less capacity to advocate is a really important part of the work that this resolution hopes to encapsulate, or hopes to sort of set the stage for.
I have a question. When we're talking, and I'm sorry if I missed this earlier, but when we're talking about like adding sidewalks in relation to like school district transportation, is the goal to it'll have more students walking to eliminate like bus stops and buses and bus routes altogether?
Yes. To reduce the number of students that need to take the bus to get to school, yes. Because it would help our climate and it would reduce costs.
Okay. What about students who live in a walkable distance but aren't able to walk to school for like whatever reasons, whether that's like they are, I don't know, I guess I can't think of any at the top of my head, but like if they're like in a wheelchair, for example, or if like they have like family reasons why they can't get up early enough to walk, like they have to take care of siblings or like stuff like that.
I think for there are accommodations that are required by law, state and federal law,
to support the needs of students with that are needs under the special education law. So we would provide, and we are required to transport any student for whom their individual education program plan requires special transportation. So a student, for example, who is in a wheelchair, or a student who has other types of needs that they need to be transported and aren't able to walk. The question you asked about, what about students who, you know, aren't able to make it to school, like by walking on time because they need to care for their younger siblings? That's a little bit more tricky to support in terms of from the district's lens, not because the district wouldn't be wanting to, but it would probably not fall under an eligible category for providing transportation. I think it would be more of a case-by-case situation where the family would meet with the school staff to explain the situation. And then teams at the school level, in collaboration with the district level leadership, would explore what options could be considered, which in the end could be busing. It would just depend. I think a conversation would need to take place to see how the families might be accommodated. It isn't, but yes, I think it's, again, it goes back to what's the capacity, and then what is the need, and what does it look like?
Yeah, I think there is an assumption built in there, Bella, too, that it's faster to take the bus, and I would push back on that. So that sometimes there are instances where maybe it is faster to take the bus, but I think oftentimes with the bus system, it's actually faster to walk. So my daughter walks to school to Shorecrest, and it's faster than her taking the bus to Shorecrest. So, or she has more time in the morning, she walks. So I don't know, it's not a given that it's faster.
Yes.
Bike
But I-
lanes as well.
Thank you.
Thing.
Great questions, Bella. Thank you.
And I feel like Bella's question, it points to something that we should think about more, which is how we can support, you know, more use of the existing infrastructure. And something like the program that Linda was mentioning of helping, you know, community volunteers walking to school with students might be one example of that, something where it is a walkable neighborhood already, and maybe more people could be encouraged to use that.
I'm gonna, Bella, you have another question?
It's a really quick one.
Okay.
Okay, is the end goal to eliminate all of the bus routes, or just the ones that are like within like a, I don't know, an hour or half an hour long walk? Does that question make sense? Like,
Currently, right now, what the state provides funding for are bus routes that are where students live beyond a mile kind of radius from the different school sites and their home. So that's all the state provides funding for. And the state also looks at 2 specific dates during the course of the school year to determine how much they'll fund. And it's based on the number of students that ride the bus on those 2 different dates. And I mean, I don't know that we let our families know, hey, it's ridership day, because I don't think we're supposed to do that. Right? And so the funding is really tied to the number of students that take the bus, and then students who are driven from outside of that 1 mile radius. But districts are allowed to go beyond the 1 mile radius. Some districts have a 1.5 mile radius walk distance. The kind of to Sarah's point over here next to me, it has to be safe though. And so if there are walking paths that we're not sure about, we connect with the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction and have a member of their staff from their safety
organization and our insurance risk pool staff come and they walk with us. I mean, in where I was previously, we actually walked the whole path and they assessed it based on whatever criteria they used on the insurance side of it, but also on the state transportation safety transportation side of it. And they would give us their determination of whether that specific walking path was safe or not. And in some cases, they will say this path is safe, but the family may still feel it isn't. But it's still appropriate for the district to say, yes, we do not provide transportation for that walking path because it is assessed as a safe route. And so then the families may choose then instead to drive their child.
Mhm.
If the district is not able to add a bus route, for example, for that path. And that has occurred in my experience in the past.
But to answer the other part of your question of, we have not talked about eliminating buses for sure, just maybe reducing the need for them. Reducing the number.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Well, this is a very rich conversation, but I'm gonna take a 1-minute break and let our school board people leave, but with our gratitude. And I think what we want to do in the long term is figure out how to collaborate. It might be that we need to work through the PTAs too, to show them our product too. So I don't know how we get to the PTAs in our local schools. You have school bulletins that go out. So that might be of use to us as we proceed forward. And we would, again, want to support the work that you're doing in any way that we can. So I wanted to thank you very much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Any communication that you wish to send our way, I can forward to the PTA Leadership Council.
Okay.
And then all members of that leadership council would receive the information and then they would, at whatever way they can, like reconnect.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and I would like to just add that I think we would love to help to continue to work with you on this resolution in particular, which the PTAs at this point are not directly working on. So yeah, so it would be great to continue conversations between these two committees, our two committees.
Terrific. Terrific. Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you.
All right. We're going to take a 1-minute break while these people pack up their things and turn off their videos.
Thank you for having us. And thanks for the work you're doing.
To see y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming.
Yeah.
I don't envy you the 10% cut. Oh, boy. Yeah. We've been through, the old parents. Oh, this before.
With the district?
Yeah. So, we're
We'll get through it.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we back. Everybody disappeared. Everybody's there. It's so bizarre talking to. We have two things we really want to focus on the rest of the meeting. That's why I wanted to move along. But Tamara, where are you? Tamara, thank you very much for arranging that. I think it was very valuable to hear what they were doing. It made me wish all we had to do was write a resolution. I had product envy.
Yeah, I'm thinking, perhaps, Rebecca and I could, touch base once a month, just kind of see where we're at. And then, maybe once or twice a year, we could invite them to one of our meetings.
Yeah, well, some way to get feedback on our product would certainly be valuable. I wanted to just two things we have a couple of things that we wanted to do was to look at some reports from the subcommittee. And one of them was the outline committee and then the survey committee, and then just a quick talk about the book club again and out the door. Mimi and Dana and I got together to look at what we thought should be in the outline based on the work of the other cities. And I sent you all a big long chart that compared the goals of each of the what I don't know, I think that I'm calling them the sister cities, the ones who have already done a product. And that sort of was their outline. And so what we had, I mean, pull this up. I'm sharing screen. So we had just said that this was our sort of draft outline, and what I was, and there are two suggestions on the floor, and I want you to think about both of them. I'm just going to zoom through this outline, and then there's the notion that we could also go to one of the cities, perhaps Kenmore, because it's most like us, and just copy theirs. I don't mean just copy theirs, but I mean make a copy of the words, and then we would modify them. And that might be another way of coming this, and it may be that we mesh both of those out once.
Use it as a template.
Thank you. Did you hear that? It said use it as a template. So we would use a template. But we were thinking that that the table of contents would include an executive summary and a vision, which was essentially that Lake Forest Park would be a net zero community among net zero communities in the county, state, nation, and the world. That notion that we're a little piece of what's going on. And that these are three goals that essentially are from Shoreline. And they talk about, and I think we really need at some point to be sure that we're all on the same page about what our goals are. But this is to, to reduce and or limit the greenhouse gas emissions to reach the K4C targets. That's essentially what we're doing, and that most of our emissions are from fuel use and natural gas. And the second would be to build resilient and adaptive strategies for our communities through the restoration of local ecosystems and enhanced sequestration. One of, I don't know what that word model sits in there for, but there it is.
No, model the use.
Model the use of forest. This was that we were, our notion was that our advantage is we have so much forest, and how do we model the use of forest coverage to remove carbon and assist in the absorption of water. And then the third area is develop environmental protection that supports and promotes healthy ecosystems. So, and there we're talking about how do we create sustainability and get our people ready. So that we thought the introduction had these elements in it. What is climate change? And what does the general public need to know about climate change? Why do we need climate change? The local climate changes impacts, and the impacts of greenhouse gases, and then the classic wedge diagram. What is it? And then our notion was that it was important to say that when we're looking at this issue of emissions reduction, we don't have to do everything. The county's doing some, the state's doing some, the country's doing some, and that we would talk about where we were targeting. There was a sense that we really need to do some background work on the demographics, and I bet the comp plan has all that. Is that right?
It's yes, and I think it's outdated because it's based on an outdated census. So that's the planning commission. We're currently in the middle of updating the comp plan.
So our sense was if we didn't know exactly who we were, I mean, it was an important piece. How old are we? Are we living in apartments? Those kinds of things that I think are going to be a bit, maybe the state has those. Does the state? No.
The 2020 census should have.
Okay. Yeah. I want somebody to have already done the work, hold it together. And then sort of what is justice and what are our climate justice? What are our And why is that important? We wanted to put that in the background in the introduction. And then where are our emissions coming from? And then we focus on these 5 areas, and these are, as you, that I sent that that comparison chart. It's pretty clear that Cascade Consulting did the same, essentially the same report for 4 organizations. And so we take those 2, and that within each of those, we'd say, what's the so the areas are transportation, buildings and homes, waste, environment, and building community adaptations and resiliency. And in each of those, the subsections would be divided into what's the problem. Let me go up here. What's the problem? How do you solve them? And where this would be where we would take that work we did, Jessica, and sort of insert them there. What do we see as we're looking down the road? What do we see as the future issues that are going to emerge because we've made some of these changes or anticipatory? And how do we ensure that the frontline communities in Lake Forest Parks are not disproportionately impacted? So we just did call that justice, just as a placeholder. Thank you. So happy you can speak still. So we did that with each of these, and we did a little bit of brainstorming about what the issue, what we saw the problems were from a local issue, but that was just kind of our brainstorming on that. But it was the structure that we were looking at in each of those 5 areas. And I guess building community adaptation and resiliency was a little bit different. We just wanted to talk about who were the affected populations, how do we do collaboration and improve the awareness of resources and assistance. Dana talked a lot about, she's talking about this at many meetings, that toolkit in the community where they share a toolkit, is sort of that piece of adaptation. But also, how do we use the commons as a cooling and heating location? Maybe that's the location. Do we need more? How do we make sure we're developing adaptation? And then the implementation is just it, and I think that's the hard part, is both how do we get this done? What's our plan? What are our updates of the plan? We want to put that in. And then this issue that I find quite difficult is the integration with the comp plan. That's maybe easier because they're right here, but the integration with other planning initiatives. So there's the tree board and the parks board and the and then we have the surface water management people who have policies. So that integration is going to be an issue, or we say we can't do that and it's somebody else's job. I mean, I think that's a possibility. I mean, it may be that we don't have the capacity to look at all those plans and what are the policy implications and how do they do that.
We could just acknowledge it too. I mean, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? Yeah. So
yeah. And then implementation is also related to education and outreach. We're going to have the mayor write some. These are just brainstorms. What can you do to what can you do from the mayor? And then this notion that Tracy was talking about earlier is how do we staff this? And it's not so it's the implementation where worse. I think our notion was that the implementation needs to be staffed. We can do some things, but and it may be just convincing the city that within their limited resources that climate has to bubble to the top. That's a tough one. But that it may be that you can find somebody through grants. And then we had a list of what we thought needed to go into the appendix, the demographics, apartments, housing, other data, the survey results, specifically the notes from community outreach. Maybe include the 2007 plan, the King County emissions for Lake Forest Park partnerships. One of those things that Tamara was just mentioning was that notion that we wanted to see partnerships, so see if we can tease out some of those partnerships where they ought to be. And we thought Tracy would find us where we could, where King County had some grants. And this issue again of collaboration, Tracy raised again, we have raised it too, how do you do collaboration with a grant writer? And then every one of these has listed definition of terms. They put it right in the front. We thought, go look at the index. And then a reading list, because these two women I worked with had a course on reading for the environment. So they had that reading list ready to go. So I know this is my question is do you think this is something we can start with and integrate with? I mean, if we're going to meet the March deadline, we've got to we have to begin to make some significant progress. So I'm looking now for help about how you think we ought to proceed.
I think that sounds good. I think using the others as a template, at least initially, is a good starting point.
Okay.
So are you talking about like literally like almost word for word, but inserting like Forest Park here and just sort of like eliminating some text? I mean, we'd have to get permission from them, I think, to do that, to make sure that it wasn't like considered copyright. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah.
I would love to do that. Don't get me wrong.
The answer is yes and no. Once it's in the public, I asked, once it's in the public sector, once it's in the public domain, we could actually do find and replace. But that's not what we want to do. But what if we started with that and then used our modification for it? So, or we put it on, I think we want to put it on as we're doing all of our draft work, we do it on the Google Docs. So we put it on there and then assign people to work on particular pieces of it. Does that make sense, Jessica?
It does. The Kenmore one is particularly graphic heavy. Like it really relies heavily on its graphics in order to convey the information. I'm not as familiar with the formats of the other ones. Are the other ones as graphic heavy as well?
Yeah. Same consultant.
They are. So yeah, because they're all Cascadia. So that's the other thing, I guess, is that in order to do something like that, we're talking about like, you know, an InDesign kind of layout of a document. I mean, there's the content.
Can you move a little closer to your mic?
Yeah, so if you're talking about that, it's more like an InDesign layout of a document as opposed to just a Word document. And I also just think we have to be careful about chunking this up into various pieces, because depending on how much rewriting people do, you're going to end up with different voices. And so then it's not going to be a cohesive document. So that's just another, not to throw more challenges at it, but that's just something that I know from, we work on a lot of documents internally in my company where we have 3 or 4 people writing on them. And you often have this challenge with the voice coming across as being very different voices.
Okay. So how do you, what's your experience, Jessica, in making sure this doesn't happen?
We use a technical editor. We use a technical editor who goes through the whole, actually I have a very good, she's very inexpensive too, who goes through the whole document and essentially massages the text to make sure that it all comes across. I think in this scenario, what we're talking about is being very careful about how much of the text we're changing. So if we're starting with, you know, an existing document, the way to keep it in the same voice would be to be, you know, fewer changes, I guess, as opposed to more changes, to really try to keep the voice the same, as opposed to making large sweeping changes to it. But you need ultimately you need one person who is very good at writing, whether that's a technical editor, or there's somebody on one of our professors maybe who can go through and look for that consistency. It is not me. I'm an engineer. Remember that.
Okay, yeah, Dana's done that for some things. So she's not here, so that she has to. We'll assign. Yeah. And. Oh, Ann, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, Jessica's largely covered it. We need to have a final edit done by one person or a team of two people who are looking to bring everything into conformity, bullet format, voice, etc. The InDesign component, that gets really spendy really fast. And I think if we commit to this, we're looking at a less graphics intensive approach. And I actually think that that's what we get by not paying a consultant, is we don't get the fancy graphics. We will have illustrations, but I think we can convey information without being as graphics heavy as the Kenmore document, for example. Love what they did, but there's a $sign attached to that. And if we want to give up that $sign, we give up those graphics and live with the consequences. Which I'm fine with.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have InDesign here? We've asked you this before. No.
I have InDesign and I know how to use it fairly well. We do use it for most of our proposals. So if that's something that we're interested in doing, and if we do the edits in a Word document, I can help with the InDesign piece of it, if that's something that we're interested in doing. I'm not saying that we have to, or that it has to. I think Anne's right. We don't need to be as fancy, and we don't need to have all the fancy graphics. I just am cognizant that the way I think there are a number of pieces of the plans, the way that they're displayed. We're going to have to change that quite a bit to get the same information across without the graphics.
Okay, I agree.
So it'll be more work. It'll be more work on that aspect. So it's just sort of, where do you want to work? Do the work. You're going to do the work in the additional writing and sort of reformatting to get the information across, or if you want to, it's duplicating everything in InDesign is not, from what they've done, is not realistic, and we're not going to, yeah, as Anne's shaking her head, I mean, I don't think that that's realistic to do. But there are some benefits to InDesign and from a simplistic format in terms of laying out the document that can be useful to produce it in a way that still has some of those graphical elements.
Could I suggest that if we actually have text, then we can work on flow and illustrations and graphic support for the text, but the starting place is text.
I think that's right. I agree. And we'll, but I love the conversation that we were talking about how to finish the document. So I'm like, I want to go back to how to start the document. And if we pull it doesn't, yeah, it doesn't, and we're not gonna copy the Kenmore, but we use it as a piece, and we'll insert those things. I mean, we're gonna do more on forest sequestration than they do, because we have a history of it. We want to look at what our assets are in developing the report.
Yeah, I mean, another example is we're not going to be talking about densification as much as they are, for instance. So,
Right,
yeah.
redevelopment of downtown.
Right.
Yeah. So this is, I'm worried that we won't get this project done unless people take. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to what's her name? Corey is going to see if she can get this in a Word document. We'll put it in a Google Doc, which we've set up, which also has and I'll send you all a link to the Google Doc of the draft outline that we put in it. And then I'm going to call you and twist your arms about doing pieces of it, or teams of committee. So I wanted to know if that was okay. Okay. Good, we got a couple of them. All right, so Tamara. You're on the survey. And let's move the special meeting to that discussion of the.
Okay, yeah, so we have, so we met the end of last month, and so Mimi offered to summarize the data for the non-open-ended questions. And so we talked about having a work party on Saturday, the 20th.
Tamara,
Yeah.
I'm gonna interrupt you. Not everybody heard how many people have responded and sort of just a little bit of, because it's kind of good, it's a good news, bad news joke, right?
Oh, with all of the responses and everything that we received. Yes, so we have 446 responses to our survey, which is awesome. I think there were, I think it's 38 people who expressed interest in volunteering with our Climate Action Committee. And so there are about 8 open-ended questions that should be fairly easy to summarize, and 13 that will be more time intensive. So we were thinking if we could just assign, one question per person, and that person can look at all of the answers and put it together in a way that allows us to then incorporate the information into our climate action plan. So we thought about having a work party on the 21st, where people can just get together with their laptops and hang out together for a couple of hours and work on doing their assigned question. And it can be us, and also utilizing some of those 38 people who expressed interest in volunteering.
So is your notion, Tamara, that you would invite the 38 people to this work party?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And if we had less than 5 people, but if Tracy will open the door for us.
Let's be 5 or less.
5 or less. Okay. Good news, not everybody has to come.
Yeah.
Bad news. Yeah, we could rotate in and out.
Yeah. There we go.
Is there anybody who's available on the 21st and would be interested in coming and sort of looking through these questions? Linda? Tamara? Bella? I would be.
Anna as well. See Anna's hand up.
Did Anna raise her hand? Or?
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay. So I had.
I love the idea of the work party though, Sarah. I think Tamara's idea of the work party, maybe also for writing this climate action plan, maybe I think if you reserve the Stadler room again, that might be a good way to get, for me, if you give me a day that I have to be there to do something, I know I'm more likely to get it done. And sitting in a room with other people who are also working on it, just in terms of writing the action plan too, might be a good way to, I'll bake cookies and bring them.
Yeah. Right. Okay, that's a great idea, because we all work better on deadlines, right?
Mhm.
Well, I'll add that to my calling you and twisting your arms. So when, Tamara, can you figure out how you want to do this? Are you okay with?
Could we use, could we go to City Hall? Could Tracy let us into City Hall?
I'm sorry, I have 2 people talking at the same time. I asked Corey if it was okay with her. She said,
If you guys are 5 or less, you guys can do your work party wherever. I'm not available on the 21st too.
Tracy is, so he could let us in.
I'll ask, but I'll ask as long as you guys are under a quorum and are just doing a work party, we might be able to do that. I don't know for sure. So I'll ask tomorrow, get back.
Okay, and I will check on this. It's hard. This Stadler room is not a great place for a big group of people, but
Library?
yeah, okay, yeah. Well, once you do that, once Corey tells us if we can do it here or not, then if we can't, we'll look for another place for it. But is your notion, Tamara, that we would email all those people and say, this is what thanks for offering to volunteer, here's your first opportunity?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So Linda had volunteered to reach out to everyone who expressed interest in volunteering. So we're going to let them know about the work party, and then also our pre-meeting for volunteers that we are going to have on the 7th, and just an introduction email to find out what areas they're specifically interested in for volunteering. Is it community outreach or data crunch, and about how many hours per month, just kind of get a feel. So you can put that all in one email out to the volunteers or the people who expressed interest in volunteering. And could we also, I mean, for this work party, I mean, would it be possible to bring in lunch for them? I mean, I know it for work events, for whatever reason, whenever you bring in lunch, the attendance tends to be higher.
It's a Corey question.
I don't know about lunch. It's not something we typically do around here, so.
Potluck?
Really? They don't bring in lunch for you guys?
We're city government. and it's not-
No, we could bring cookies. We're bringing enough cookies.
We could also bring in one of those, you know,
But I'm wondering,
Costco or something like
Yeah.
that. I'll go pick one up. Yeah, yeah.
could
Yes.
you ask one of the local businesses to donate some food, Tamara? Maybe we ask, you know, Honey Bear Bakery or somebody, you know, to donate a tray of pastries, or, you know, tell them who we are and what we're doing, and seeing if somebody would be willing to donate some food.
Yeah, maybe Mod Pizza could donate some pizzas, or yeah, it's a good idea. I'll reach out to
And
some of them in town center.
tell me what Mimi is gonna do.
So she's gonna look at the non-open-ended questions and just summarize that data. So put it, you know, in a format that's easy. You know, we had this number of people between these ages who respond to the survey, this number of people who live in Lake Forest Park, this percentage of people who, you know, had this.
All right, and when you are working with these volunteers, will you have will you train? Will you spend some time telling them what we're supposed to do?
For the survey piece?
Yeah. I mean, you've got, I have in front of me a list of 35 responses to a question. Are you gonna help me? Are you gonna give an overview to the volunteers about how they would deal with that data?
If anyone has any suggestions. We're just
Okay.
gonna say, go for it.
Like, I think you're gonna look for commonalities, right? You want to try to bin the data if you can into groupings. You know, they're gonna read through it and you know, start looking for, you know, there's sort of these 6 things fall into this bucket, these 5 things fall into this bucket. So you want to kind of group it so that it's not just a whole bunch of discrete answers. And then you can kind of summarize the most sort of common, we've got, you know, 50% of the people, or whatever it is, you know, this number of these responses all had this general theme to them. So you can come up with maybe the 3 to 5, you know, most significant responses to those open-ended questions, something like that. That would be my recommendation.
We could develop a worksheet, just as Jessica said, how many answers were there, and then ask people to cluster them into groups and then summarize them. So Tamara, maybe we could develop a worksheet for that. Okay.
Sounds good. And then
Yes.
let's see. Oh, something else that we had talked about. You know, if it's possible for people in our community who might want to donate money instead of time to our climate action committee.
They can give money to the city, but the city would be, I will speak for this, I know, they'd have to set up a new column for.
Yeah.
But if anybody wants to give $100,000, we could make that work. Probably we could make it work.
They can buy you guys lunch.
Wouldn't that be a great problem to have if people are begging to donate money to us?
Yes.
I'm looking forward to that.
Did you actually, have you actually had people offer to donate money, or did they say that in the survey? I'm curious.
I don't know if anyone has specifically mentioned that, but just in my experience working as the class captain at my kid's school, a lot of parents are like, I will give you money. I'm in favor of this effort, but I'm not giving any time.
I don't really like giving
Okay, so this is what I think I heard us say. I'm summarizing. Is there, unless there's more, Tamara, do you have more?
Yeah, just a couple of other things just to finish my kind of subcommittee summary. Something else that came up during our meeting was just if there's going to be an opportunity for us to brainstorm as a committee how we want to spend the budget that we have. And for the climate justice, if we could hire a consultant to help with our tribal outreach and to ensure our plan centers climate justice. And I have the name of a potential consultant. I reached out to her, but I haven't heard back yet. And sounds like she would be very reasonably priced. Just could look over whatever draft that we put together and provide her input.
Can you, I'm unclear as to, so they're going to help reach out to tribes, or there's somebody who's going to read it with a lens, with that lens, that tribal lens, justice lens. I'm confused about the role of that consultant.
So both pieces. So someone who, who has contacts with the tribes, who could help, who already has established relationships, who could help introduce us to the people who she's worked with. And then also and then she could also take a look at our climate action plan, our draft climate action plan as well, and review it to see if it's in line with our climate justice goals, see if they have any input on how we could make it more equitable.
It may be that
I will just offer,
some issue.
I do have sorry.
Go ahead.
One of the reasons I was asking the school district what tribes is because, so I work directly for several tribes. So I do have contacts in Tulalip, Swinomish, Saxuatl, Suquamish. Those are mostly the ones that I work with. So I do have direct contacts with the Department of Natural Resources, which would be the environmental pieces for those tribes, and some folks who are more umbrellas higher up as well. So I do have some tribal contacts and connections. I'm curious if this consultant though, so has she had other cities working with the tribes on climate action plans specifically?
So I'm not sure if she has worked with other cities and kind of what she's done yet. That was something that I was hoping to talk to her about and kind of see what her experience is and how she thinks she could help us.
So I'd be happy to be part of that conversation, Tamara, if that would be helpful. And then we can kind of cross-check and see maybe it's a shared, kind of workload or something. I mean, making phone calls with people who I talk to all the time is easy for me. So, and like I said, those are active clients of mine that I work with all the time, and they're always, engaged, and the tribes are always happy when people reach out to them and ask their opinion, to be honest with you. But I don't, so I don't object to paying her. I'm just sharing that I can help with some of that and those resources.
Yeah, that would be great, Jessica. Thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely include you in those conversations.
Anything else, Cameron?
I know that was it.
So I think this is where we are today in terms of the report Corey's gonna see if she can get a document that we can use as a template from Kenmore that's in an editable form. She's gonna put it in the Google Docs folder, which Dana has set up and includes the outline, which I will ask her to forward to all of you. So you'll have the folder. Then once it's in there, I'm gonna call each of you to talk about where you think you might be able to begin to do some first draft on taking one of the issues of the template and pushing it a little bit further. We have let's see, then so that's where we are on that, and we'll sort of see where we are after I've had a chance to corner you. Then we're gonna have a work party on the 21st with Linda, Tamara, Bella, Sarah, and Hannah, and Tracy. And we're gonna develop a worksheet for it so people can have a way of working consistently through the open-ended messages, and that Tamara and Jessica were gonna take a look at this particularly tribal justice issue. And I'd like to think that maybe it's more than tribal. That's, you know, one of the issues for me is I'm not sure what our demographics are, but I suspect that we're mostly middle class white people. But just my guess. But I'm always surprised at the children, and I mean, I'm looking through my children's school pictures. I'm amazed how diverse the schools are. So sometimes I'm surprised. So we'll come back at our next meeting and take a look at where we are. And does everybody want to see the survey? Do you all want to see the whole raw survey? So.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we'll send the survey out. But we're gonna keep that. We're gonna keep it under wraps. Are we? Do we care if it's under wraps or not? I think we should keep it under wraps until we've had a chance to tell the council what's in it. And I don't mean you can't talk to people about it. Surely you can do that, but I'm thinking maybe just not broadcast it. Don't put it in the next door.
Yeah.
But other than that. Okay, the only other thing is the book club meeting on Wednesday, tomorrow. We're reading this book and you can just join us. You don't even have to have read the book. We're it's at 6 o'clock in the Commons. We're sit by the stage. We have a couple of people who aren't on the committee and a couple of people who are, so it's interesting. We hope to have an ongoing book club. Are there anything else that we need for the good of the order? Tracy?
So the planning commission is coming to the council to talk to us about the sign ordinance next meeting, right?
That I'm not aware of.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was tabled for a little bit.
Okay,
Yeah.
I know that the Parks Commission, or possibly the Tree Commission, is coming to us to the council to talk about progress in their work plan. So one thing I want you guys to think about is when it would be appropriate for you to come summarize the 2022 work plan and then give a kind of a update on the 2023 work plan. It doesn't have to be like next meeting on 12th or anything, just sometime in the next couple of months.
Yeah, good idea. I don't think we're ready yet. I think it would be good to show them the results of the survey and just give them our strategies for moving ahead and the limitations we're operating. I think that's a good word. Talk about it. Okay.
Sarah?
Yes.
Do we have any plan of actually engaging either the tree board or the park board in being involved with us here or not?
Well, I've had conversations with, I've had one conversation with the chair of the tree board to talk about sequestration, which I passed to Brian because I do not want to be in charge of sequestration, Brian. Do not write me back, write the report. But you're deaf, so.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I can take care of that.
Yeah. So, but I was thinking that there needed to be a circle back to all of those folks. You're meeting with the Parks Board, Linda?
I can do it again.
Okay. All right, well, but I do think there is a real value in circling back. And I did speak with Steve Bennett today. And he said he was going to assign somebody from the planning commission to come and look at this.
Okay, in fact, I remember what my point was, which I got distracted by myself on, which is, thank you for coming.
Yes.
And when should we go, because you're gonna start working on the comp plan. When should we start sending members to, kind of witness what you guys are doing?
Well, that's a really good question. We're still in the early phases trying to come up with our draft work plan as well. And so I think at the last meeting, we had identified, at the last meeting, some of the main things that we identified was the climate change element is not quite there in our current comp plan. And so we wanted to make sure that was reflected. That's why I'm here today. We also identified economic development, safe streets, and transportation. So those are the main highlights that have come out so far, as far as part of what we'd like to see in the comp plan. So early phases, yeah.
You'll let us know then.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're still trying to figure out which direction we're going.
Thanks.
We really appreciate you being here, Lois.
Connection. I'll just leave this with you. I have an extra copy. This is the current transportation sidewalk and bike plan, which is in the comp plan, the second part. It's kind of interesting to keep that image in this, okay, in your mind as you think about.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay, so please pick up the phone when I call you. All right, take care now. We'll see you next month.
Here, you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
And
Thank
thanks again.
you.
Well, thanks. Have a great evening. Yes.
Well, and